What happened to Vernon? Oh, Vernon left? Oh, okay. I can say, why is everybody so quiet in church, Right? It's okay, you can get excited, especially here on Palm Sunday, right? Here it is Palm Sunday. Hold your palms up. Give me 3 big hosannas. Are we ready? Hosanna! 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 There you go. Now we're in the spirit of it. Okay? We're going to be saving these. We're going to be saving these. We'll bring them back in burnt form on Ash Wednesday. That's the tradition. You collect up the palms on Palm Sunday, and you burn them, and you save the ashes for Ash Wednesday. We have such a diverse background here at ODM. We have former Catholics, former Episcopalians, former Lutherans, former Methodists, Baptists, Charismatics, Pentecostals. We have been kicked out of the finest churches everywhere. It's so great to be here. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. This morning, we're going to continue in our Gospel of John. The Gospel according to John. As you know, we started the Gospel of John. We finished the first chapter. We're moving on to the second chapter. We're going to come up to sort of a controversial passage this morning. It's the passage where Jesus changes water into wine. And John marks this as the first sign. The first sign of what? Well, we'll talk about that. But it's interesting that we should be looking at the first sign of who Jesus is on Palm Sunday, because of course, on Palm Sunday, all the people in Jerusalem were acknowledging who he was. They were shouting out, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. He came in writing, they're saying, you are our king. They acknowledged who he was. And this is the very first sign that John says, this is where it started. And so we're going back to the beginning of where it started, the first sign of who Jesus is. Let's take a look at this. By the way, this is a controversial passage. If you begin reading about it, maybe you read some of the commentaries and different things, you'll notice that there's a lot of argumentation about what really happened there at the wedding of Canaan. And you'll get a lot of weird interpretations. I'm going to talk about some of those weird interpretations today, but we'll take a look at this. Yes. Anybody recognize the person in the picture? That's Billy Sunday. Billy Sunday. Yeah, Billy Sunday was a very famous preacher. He was part of the Temperance movement. He preached temperance. During the Temperance movement, this particular passage of turning water into wine caused a lot of problems because they're busy preaching alcohol is evil, drinking alcohol is a sin, and yet what does Jesus do? He makes alcohol. That kind of creates a little bit of a problem. There's a story about Billy Sunday. One Sunday morning, he's up and he's preaching. And he got up there, he was telling his little sermon thing. He says, if I had all the beer in this city, I would take it and I'd throw it in the river. Then he says, if I had all the wine in this city, I'd take it and I'd throw it in the river. And if I had all the hard liquor in this city, I'd take it and I'd throw it in the river. And when he was done, his choir master got up and said, let us now sing hymn 235, we shall all gather at the river. So, yeah. Good morning. Glad you're here for that one. Why didn't I get a rim shot off of that one? Anyway. No, the temperance movement had a hard time with this passage. And in fact, they preached that, well, Jesus didn't really turn water into wine. He turned it into grape juice. There's actually several people who'll tell you that. I wanted to point this out. This is an old ad for Welch's non-alcoholic communion wine. I promised you online that I would tell you how the wedding at Canaan, water into wine, connected to Welch's grape juice. As you may not have known, the Welch's company, they were a temperance movement company. And they figured out that by applying the pasteurization process to grape juice, it wouldn't ferment. And so they created their grape juice as a substitute for communion wine, because we certainly don't want to be serving the real stuff in church now, do we? That would be sin, and that would be evil, that would be wrong. And so Welch's started as communion wine. I think they've gone far past that at this point. There's a little book out there, it's called, by William Patton, it's called Bible Wines, or the Laws of Fermentation and the Wines of the Ancient, written back in the 1830s, around 1835 or so. And he wanted to prove his point that Jesus absolutely did not create alcohol. Jesus could not have created alcohol. One of his points was, well, he didn't have time to ferment it. I'm like, what part of supernatural and miraculous did you miss? If you can turn it into grape juice, I don't think turning it into wine is going to require a lot of time. But this is what he had to say about it. He says, can it be seriously entertained that Christ should, by his miraculous power, make alcohol an article abundantly proved not to be found in all the ranges of his creation? Can I believe that he, by making alcohol, sanctions the making of it and giving it to his creatures, when he better than all others knew that in the past has been the cause of temporal and eternal ruin of myriads, of which in all the ages to come would plunge myriads upon myriads into the depths of eternal damnation? And so, if you're busy trying to take this particular viewpoint and shove it into the Bible as an interpretation, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some problems. We have to be very careful about trying to take some viewpoint, some opinion, some preformed ideas, and forcing them into the Bible, because that's bad Bible interpretation. So I wanted to look at some of these bad Bible interpretations this morning, and this passage just kind of gave me a little thing to do about it. We're going to call this little section here Exegesis versus eisegesis. I know that when you probably hear that, you're probably thinking, is that like two Greek philosophers battling it out? Over in this corner in the red shorts, it's eisegesis, arguing that the only thing that can be proved is matter. Only Ted laughed at that one. So, yeah, but that's good. It's a philosophy joke for those who don't get it. Ted will explain it to you later. All right. But no, it's not about two Greek philosophers battling it out. What it actually is this. Exegesis and eisegesis are two conflicting approaches in Bible study. Exegesis is the exposition or explanation of a text based on the careful, objective analysis. The word exegesis literally means to lead out of. That means that the interpreter is led to his conclusions by following the text. I like to think of it like exegesis, like excavation. I'm digging it out. You have to take the text, and whatever the text says, that's what you have to take out of it. The other approach is called eisegesis. The opposite approach to Scripture is eisegesis, which is the interpretation of a passage based on a subjective, non-analytical reading. The word eisegesis literally means to lead into, which means that the interpreter injects his own ideas into the text, making it mean whatever he wants. And a lot of us have experienced that. Usually when somebody says to me, well, the Bible plainly says, I'm like, I bet you haven't really read it correctly. Or, well, it's perfectly clear to me. And it's like, probably not. You're probably practicing eisegesis, where you're taking your ideas and forcing them onto Scripture. You have to be careful, especially when you're dealing with teachers who like to play Bible bingo. Anybody ever play Bible bingo? Yeah, that's where you just they just kind of take random verses from wherever in the Bible until they get enough of them that say what they want them to say, taking them completely out of context. Many of us in this room have been hurt by this kind of interpretation, and it is a wrong interpretation, especially when it comes to this particular passage here. Here's the passage, let's take a look at it. John chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. And Jesus said to her, woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. And Jesus said to them, fill the jars with water, and they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, now draw some out and take it to the chief steward. So he took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom. And he said to him, everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine, after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now. Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and they remained there a few days. The reason I've highlighted the first of his signs is because in the Gospel of John, between chapter 1 and chapter 12, John's going to point out 7 signs of who Jesus is. a revelation of his nature and his character and who he is. There'll be 7 of them, and this is the first amongst 7. Now let's take a look at some bad eisegesis here. Taking opinions, taking our thoughts, taking what we want to believe and trying to force it upon the text. Okay? Sometimes you just get all kinds of crazy assumptions that people bring in there. Not only things like, well, it didn't have time to ferment, okay, but other things like this. That Mary must have been related to the bride or groom to be invited. Because that's one of the big... Why was Mary there? Well, most likely because Mary lived in the area. The last we had seen of Mary was that she and Joseph had gone to Egypt. Most likely, they didn't stay there. They probably came back at some point. And she probably lived in the area. And it was not necessary for her to actually be related to anybody at the wedding. See, all too often, we kind of read these wedding passages like Westerners. We read them with our Western eyes. Think about it this way. In a Western wedding, who is invited? You know, special people, right? Certain family members and special people to us, and we have to send out a special invitation and they show up. Okay? And they better RSVP or they're not getting a meal. Okay? And there's even people that we specifically don't invite. I'm not inviting that person. There are people that we will specifically not invite. But in the Palestinian area, weddings were very different. Weddings were very much a community event. If somebody got married, there weren't invitations that got sent out. It's just everybody just showed up. Oh, so-and-so's getting married. And the whole town would come. And these weddings would last sometimes 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, a week. And everybody would just be hanging out at your house for about a week. Coming and going. Oh, I got to go to work. And after work, they'd come back. And, they would just and everybody was invited. Everybody. So why was Mary there? She probably lived in the area rather than she was related to somebody. That would make more sense. Jesus must have been related. He was apparently in the area. Even if he were a stranger in the land, Jesus was an itinerant rabbi. But it appeared they were spending some time in Cana. He would have been invited. Everybody in the town is invited. He doesn't have to be related to somebody there. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones. Why did they run out of wine? And it says, because he brought his disciples. And apparently they must have been luscious because they drank up all the wine. And that caused the shortage of wine. That's why Jesus felt responsible for it. He had to make the wine. We don't know why they ran out of wine, and probably not because the unexpected disciples. When you're running, again, one of these, Palestinian-style weddings, everybody's invited. It's probably just they all stayed a little too long. This is my favorite one. This is, I call the Dan Brown Da Vinci Code one. It was Jesus getting married at the wedding. Actually, Dan Brown didn't come up with that. That was created by the writers of the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, that supposedly it was Jesus getting married at Cana, and then Dan Brown took it. It's been appearing all over the place. That's why he was at the wedding. No, he was probably at the wedding because everybody was invited to the wedding. So let's not throw some assumptions on there that don't belong there. Oh yes, the Western feminist reading. I read an article the other day, it was a journal reading about this, about how offensive this wedding was, and how bad Jesus is, and what a paternalistic society and all this kind of stuff it was. Okay, it's about this particular verse here. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and me? My hour has not yet come." And they see that this word, Jesus would refer to her as woman, was derogatory. And again, that's us reading with Western eyes. Okay, I can guarantee you, if I were to look at somebody like Estella and Patty, maybe I say to Estella, "Woman." Okay, first I wouldn't do that. First off, Estella can probably beat me up. Okay, and Patty would jump right in. She'd be like, "You don't call her that, right?" Okay, but that's with our Western eyes. That particular term, woman, was not considered derogatory in this culture at that time. In fact, when Jesus hung on the cross, he turned to Mary and he addressed her the same way. He says, "Woman, behold your son." And he guides her to John the Beloved to say, "Here, take care of my mom." It wasn't considered a derogatory time. The other thing that they've considered derogatory is, what concern is that to you and me? That he was being dismissive. That he was being dismissive by saying that. What concern is that to you and me? And actually, comes from a Greek translation. This is an English translation of a Greek translation of a Hebrew idiom. And the Hebrew idiom means a lot of different things depending on the context. And then in this particular context, it pretty much means, well, that's kind of a trivial matter. That's not the important thing that's happening here right now. Okay. Most likely what happened is this. Mary realizes they run out of wine. And running out of wine at a wedding is sort of a pretty bad social faux pas. It's gonna get you sort of looked down upon, like, can you believe they ran out of wine? You know, it'd be like running out of cake at a wedding today. It's like, can you believe they ran out of wine? Right? And so Mary's like, oh no, they ran out of wine. And Jesus is like, don't worry about it. That's not important. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. And with this kind of reassurance, she says to the servants, do whatever he says. Apparently he's got something up his sleeve. Let's find out what it is. Jesus is being derogatory about how he talks to his mother. That's not what's going on in this at all. Okay? So again, trying to do this sort of Western feminist reading of Scripture isn't helpful. It's imposing ideas upon Scripture that shouldn't be there. Sometimes we get a little too metaphorical, where everything's supposedly a metaphor, everything's supposedly an analogy. This was my favorite one that I found. It looks like this. The 6 jars for ritual purification represent the law, the Jewish law, the laws of purification. 6 for being incomplete, short of the perfect number 7. Right? The wine represents grace, which replaces the law and comes through Jesus and is far superior. I'm like going, it's a beautiful analogy, but it doesn't fit into the overall text. It's taking one verse, one idea, 6 jars, and building a whole interpretation around it that doesn't fit into the entire context, the entire text of what's being read. Let's look at some good exegesis. How do you go about interpreting this stuff? How do you go about taking a passage like the wedding at Canaan, and how do you go about interpreting it so that you come out with the correct interpretation? Okay. Well, the story must be read in the context of the author's intent and the original reader's contemporary cultural understanding. First off, what did the author intend to do? What was the author trying to communicate to us? In this case, we're attributing this to John. Whoever wrote the Gospel of John, what was their intent? And then second, how did the people who first read this, how did they understand it? See, if we try to read it from our perspective, then we're forcing things into it. But we try to read it from their perspective. How did they understand it? So here's 2 clues for you. Here's the first clue. The author's intent. Jesus did this, the first of his signs. The author's intent is to show us that this is a sign of who Jesus is. Whatever happened at this miracle, it somehow has to point out who Jesus is. That's the whole point of the story. It's not about how many jars were there. It's not about whether Mary was related. It's not about who's getting married. None of that's important. What is important is there has to be some kind of sign that this miracle points to. And then the second thing, we can't read this as modern Western individuals. We have to understand it as the readers would have understood it, which puts us in the area of Palestine in the first century Jews. How would they have understood this? What would all of this miracle have meant to them? And then we can correctly interpret this. So, my question was, what did wine mean to first century Jews? Was it symbolic of something? What did it mean to first century Jews? Because if we turn water into wine, that's the miracle, there must be some meaning behind this. It must be the sign that points towards something. So, doing my research, here we go. Wine oftentimes meant gladness. In Psalm 104, 14 through 15, you cause the grass to grow for the cattle and the plants for people to use, to bring forth food from the earth, and wine to gladden the human heart, oil to make the face shine, and bread to strengthen the human heart. When you begin reading some of the commentaries on the Old Testament, when you read the Talmud and the Mishnah, they say wine is symbolic of gladness. Okay, I'll buy that. Also in Psalm 4:7, you've put gladness in my heart more than when the grain and wine abound. It's like, okay, so in the Jewish mindset, wine equals gladness. Is that pointing anywhere towards who Jesus is? I don't know, we'll think about it. What did wine mean to first century Jews? In a metaphorical usage, wine represents the essence of goodness. The Torah, Jerusalem, Israel, the Messiah, the righteous, All of these get compared to wine. You can see that at the Jewish Encyclopedia. You look it up for yourself. Wait a minute, wine represents the Messiah? Now I think we're getting somewhere. Let's keep moving on. What did wine mean to first century Jews? The paradisal age to come will be so abundant that people can literally wash their clothes in wine. The mountain and winepress will overflow with must, which is new wine. And Yahweh will provide for all nations a banquet with the best wines. And this is from the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament there. You can look that up. So we have wine representing the Messiah. We have an abundance of wine. More specifically, an abundance of wine and the best wine representing the Messianic age to come. The age that the people were anticipating. The time that they were waiting for. For the old age to pass and the Messianic age to start. This abundance of wine. Now let's get back to those 6 jars. Each of those 6 jars would have held anywhere between 20 to 30 gallons of water. So that means that's anywhere between 120 to 180 gallons of wine suddenly appearing. To me, I don't know about some of you guys, but 180 gallons is kind of an abundance of wine if you ask me. That's bigger than a Costco run, right? That's an abundance of wine. And what did the steward say? This is the best wine. So now I think we're on track for how to interpret this. Wine and the abundance of wine represents the Messiah and the Messianic age. An age of joy and gladness. Now we've got it all tied together. Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Last week we saw how Nathanael, in reference to the fig tree, said, hey, this is about the Messianic age. And now, here at this wedding in Canaan, an abundance of wine. And the best wine. And they're like going, it is. This is the Messianic age. You are the Messiah. And they believed in him. They believed in him. Because this miracle points to Jesus as Messiah, and that the Messianic age, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, is now here at hand. In the first chapter of John, we see eternal Jesus as the Logos. Then we see John preparing everybody to receive him. And then we see him being received by the first disciples. And now here is his first sign, here I am. What John had prepared, the kingdom of God is at hand, now is being received by people. And it starts with the first of his disciples here. So let's correct some false narratives. Here's false narrative number 1. Christians are expected to be serious-minded and abstain from worldly pleasures. How many of you have been told this? You need to be all serious in church all the time. When I went to high school, like I said, I went to a private Christian high school. Right, I was raised up in the Southern Baptist Church. And they had, when you first go to that high school, when you're first there, your first day, every year, they would hand you the rule book. Big old thick rule book. And every rule, there were hundreds of them, literally, hundreds of rules. And every rule I always thought was kind of funny because every rule had a little verse after it. None of us ever bothered to look up the verses. We just assumed, well, that must be in the Bible, right? I wish I could find that rule book because there's a no gum chewing. And there's an actual verse after it. And I wish I knew what that verse was, because I have searched the Bible for thou shalt not chew gum, and it's not there. But they were like, lots of rules. So we came up with a summary of all the rules. It's like, these are too many rules to memorize. How do you just kind of have a quick and easy rule of thumb so you can know what it is? And our quick and easy rule of thumb was this. If it's fun, it's against the rules. Don't do it. I think a lot of people, when they go to church, they're told this, you need to be serious. Be of a sober mind. You need to take God seriously. Abstain from all these worldly pleasures. We're afraid of the world oftentimes. And it's like, oh, that's a worldly thing. You can't enjoy it. No, stay away from it. Don't taste, don't touch. And yet, look at this first miracle. Jesus joined in this huge community celebration. And he provided the wine. as a symbol of joy and gladness. I see a lot of folks as Christians, and you ask them, how was your day? And they'll be like, blessed. Blessed. They're like, then inform your face, please. It's okay. We can laugh. We can have fun in church. It's all right. We can go out and have a joyous celebration. We don't have to turn every meeting we have into some kind of prayer meeting or something like that. Did you know it's okay for Christians just to go out, have a burger together, maybe eat some fries with it, get a little wild, get the animal-style fries, and enjoy them? That's okay. Because Jesus joined in celebration. Oftentimes when we see Jesus, we see images of Jesus, we see that little ethereal kind of thing, he's kind of like looking away, right? But Jesus laughed. Jesus had a good time as a human being. And it's okay for us to enjoy it too. We don't have to be abstaining from all worldly pleasures. So Jesus came to reveal himself so that we could understand God. And as I say, we get a double blessing out of that, because not only do we understand who God is, but we understand how to live as a human being. Because he showed us how to live a perfect human life. He also came to bring abundant life, folks. He didn't call us to austerity. He didn't call us to some kind of living like monks. He called us to enjoy our lives. That the Messianic age is an age of abundance. That wine will flow and there'll be so much of it that we can even wash our clothes in it. I like what he says in John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. So for all of you, maybe you grew up like I did, right? Raised up in the old Southern Baptist church where everything's a sin. And you better not be enjoying yourself. And don't get too serious when you sing those hymns. And don't be raising those hands, because an angel will just chop them right off. I remember as a kid, there was a very popular song. It was, I lift my hands. And our Southern Baptist choir master changed it to I lift my heart, because we can't have any of that lifting of hands stuff in here. It's just not allowed. You look like you're having fun. You can't have any of that kind of stuff. No, have a good time. Enjoy. When these songs are here, stand up, lift your hands, clap, enjoy yourselves. Laugh a little bit. Go out and have a good burger out there. Maybe a slice of pizza to go with. It's okay. Have life abundantly. Jesus wants us to live lives of joy and fullness. We don't have to live with sackcloth and ashes on our head, all sad and serious. Be joyful. Wouldn't that be great? Maybe sometime you go out there and instead of running into one of these street preachers and they got the sign and the bullhorn yelling at you, and they're all angry. How about if they were just out there having a really good time and laughing it up? You'd be like, I don't know who those people are, but let's go join them. They're having fun. And then you find out, Christians can have fun. Yeah, we can have fun. Come on, it's joy, it's celebration. We can live lives full of joyness. So, good exegesis on this passage. Jesus came to reveal himself as the Messiah. And he called us to a life of joy and abundance. That's what this passage is about. Not all the other craziness. So with that, I'm going to close in prayer. Worship team, come on back up. You can sing us out. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for sending your Son. You didn't call us to a life of austerity. You didn't call us to live sad little lives. You called us to lives of abundance and joy. May we celebrate who you are. And like on that first Palm Sunday, may we cry out, Hosanna, Hosanna, our King is here. Our King is here. Let us celebrate this morning. We just pray this in your name. Amen.